to honor duty to war.
Avengers. Doomsday is gonna make $1 billion, but it's almost certainly gonna be a disaster. And the reason those two things can coexist should terrify every Marvel fan. Because for the first time, Marvel isn't selling you a movie, they're selling you emotional insurance. Bro, this trailer doesn't feel like a promise of quality, it feels like a desperate reminder of what once worked. When a franchise reaches the point where its biggest selling point is bringing back the dead instead of pushing forward, that's not confidence, that's risk management. You don't call a movie Doomsday unless you want us to believe the stakes are irreversible. But honestly, does anyone still believe Marvel when they say the world is ending? The issue here isn't escalation, it's narrative inflation. We've seen multiverses collapse and realities reset so many times that extinction has become a common Tuesday. So Marvel is compensating by going smaller emotionally while pretending it's going bigger narratively. And that's where the foundation starts to rot. They aren't trying to convince us the world is ending, they're trying to convince us that our relationship with these characters still matters. But can you recreate a 10-year feeling in a 2-hour movie? $1 billion is the easiest prediction in history because nostalgia is the industry's strongest drug. You could release this film with zero plot details and it would still open massive. But the disaster comes later, when the world realizes that financial success doesn't equal narrative satisfaction. We've seen this before. We've seen what happens when characters return, because the brand demands it, not because the story needs it. And Avengers Doomsday is walking into that trap with absolute confidence. Look at the biggest red flag, the reliance on unresolved threads from years ago. There is a fine line between a payoff and a regression. A payoff is earned. Regression is what happens when a studio doesn't trust its new characters and reaches for an old safety net. But safety nets don't move you forward, they just stop you from falling. A franchise that hovers in place eventually loses all momentum. And then there's the issue of Dr. Doom himself. Introducing Victor Von Doom, the most complex antagonist in comic history, under the pressure of reviving a struggling ecosystem is a nightmare scenario. Doom isn't just a villain, he's a worldview. If he's reduced to a symbolic threat or a generic obstacle for legacy heroes to punch, then Marvel has officially missed the point. Historically, when a movie carries this much weight, the villain is the first thing to be compromised. Doomsday isn't the next chapter, it's a stress test. Marvel is asking, if we put the right names together, will you still show up? The answer is yes. But the follow-up question is the one that matters. Will you still care a week later? If the answer is no, then this $1 billion win becomes a long-term liability. It teaches the studio that familiarity beats innovation. And that is how franchises collapse. Not with a failure, but with a success that no one bothers to examine. Bringing legacy characters back into the spotlight isn't automatically bad, but it becomes a problem when their return exists to stabilize audience faith rather than challenge it. And let's be honest here, Marvel isn't bringing people back because the narrative demands it, it's doing it because post-Endgame storytelling fractured audience trust. That's not an insult, it's a business reality. When viewers stop emotionally investing in newer characters, the studio reaches for familiar ones like a safety net. The danger is that safety nets don't move you forward, they stop you from falling. And a franchise that stops falling but doesn't move forward just hovers in place, slowly losing momentum. Another issue Avengers Doomsday is going to face is tonal confusion. Marvel is clearly trying to balance gravity with accessibility, seriousness with crowd-pleasing spectacle, and emotional weight with franchise obligation. That's a hard balance, even when your narrative foundation is solid. Right now, Marvel's foundation is fragmented. Different audiences are invested in different corners of the universe. And this movie is being sold as the glue that brings everyone back together. That sounds great in theory, but in practice it usually means nobody gets exactly what they want. Hardcore fans want lore consistency. Casual viewers want emotional clarity. International audiences want spectacle. Longtime fans want closure. Newer fans want relevance. You cannot fully satisfy all of those demands in a single film without compromising something important. And Marvel has a track record of compromising depth first. That's how you end up with movies that are technically impressive, financially dominant, and emotionally hollow. And that's the real risk here. Not that Avengers Doomsday will fail, but that it will succeed in all the ways that don't actually matter long term. There's also the issue of Doctor Doom himself, because introducing one of the most complex antagonists in comic history under the pressure of reviving a struggling narrative ecosystem is a nightmare scenario. Doom isn't just a villain, he's a worldview. He requires time, perspective, and philosophical grounding to work properly. If he's reduced to a functional obstacle or a symbolic threat, he loses what makes him compelling. And when a movie is already carrying the weight of nostalgia, legacy, multiversal stakes, and brand rehabilitation, something has to give. Historically, that something is the villain. Which would be ironic, considering Doom is supposed to be the point. Another problem people aren't talking about enough is expectation misalignment. Marvel is marketing Avengers Doomsday as a corrective moment, a return to form, a signal that the franchise has found its footing again. That raises expectations to a dangerous level. Because now the movie doesn't just have to be good, it has to justify everything that came before it. It has to retroactively explain why certain choices were made, why certain arcs stalled, and why the audience should trust the direction again. That's not storytelling, that's damage control wrapped in spectacle. And audiences can feel that, even if they can't articulate it. They may cheer in the moment, but that doesn't mean they'll feel satisfied afterward. And that's how you get billion-dollar movies with rapidly declining cultural impact. Big opening, loud reactions, and then silence. The final and perhaps most uncomfortable truth is this. Avengers Doomsday feels less like the next chapter and more like a stress test. It's Marvel asking, if we put the right names together, will you still show up? The answer will almost certainly be yes. The follow-up question is the one that matters. Will you still care afterward? Because if the answer to that is no, then this billion-dollar success becomes a long-term liability. It teaches the wrong lesson. It tells the studio that familiarity beats innovation, that recycling emotional beats is safer than earning new ones, and that audiences will always forgive regression as long as it's wrapped in prestige.